supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, the founder of the Blended Pledge, and I am super excited to be here with you. We are going to be talking about some breaking news that just came through the pipe. I think it was last night, and my trade bestie, Audrey Ross, is here with me today to talk all about the hot topics. Plus, I think it's National Supply Chain Day. So I want to give a shout out to all the supply chain professionals, the supply chainers out there doing all the hard work on a day-to-day basis. Happy National Supply Chain Day. But before we get into what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain, we do need to talk about our show sponsor, and that is the Secret Society of Supply Chain. It's our free membership group for supply chainers, and we've got virtual meetups. We just did a really fun one with everybody a couple of weeks ago. We played some Pictionary to get to know each other, and we had a lot of fun. So head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com, sign up today, and we will see you in there. We've also got Woman in Supply Chain Connections, and we've got the Supply Chain Marketing Masters Program for marketing professionals in supply chain as well. All right, let's get to what is happening in our world. So we've got a brand new episode 465, and we're talking about how your fulfillment transformation starts today with TGW Logistics. Now, if you don't know who they are and how they can help you, go and listen to this episode because we talked to them about their founder story. How did they get started? What are they doing? How do they help their customers? Who their ideal client is? And so much more. So head over wherever you listen to the show, either on Apple, Spotify, watch it on YouTube, maybe over on LinkedIn, and go and check that out. It's episode 465. Plus, I've got a brand new episode of the Blended Podcast out, and it's about mental health awareness. Now, this was a really great episode. We had a lot of different people from around the world talking about some of the challenges that they have and how organizations can really step it up and support people with mental health in their organizations as well. So go and check that out wherever you listen to the show as well. Sorry, I have something in the way. All right, today, what are you doing at 3 p.m. Eastern? Well, hopefully you are going to click the link in the comments and register for this webinar that I am hosting with BlackBerry Radar. And this is another case study. We did a webinar just about a month or so ago with another one of their clients, and we had so much amazing feedback. We are doing it again with another one of their clients, talking about how data-driven decisions are transforming asset utilization. Now, if you're thinking about tracking devices, et cetera, this is the place for you. And hopefully I'll see you there at 3 p.m. Eastern. Next, in-person conferences. Where am I going to be? Hopefully I'm going to see you all there. Coupa Inspire, May 12th and 15th through the 15th. In Las Vegas, Home Delivery World, May 21st and 22nd in Nashville. I'm going to be recording episodes on site there. So I can't wait to see you. And then TMSA Elevate, Madison from our team is going to be there, and she's going to be presenting on some of our marketing initiatives as well. So go and check that out, sign up, and hopefully we will see you there. And I think that's it. Now it's time to bring up Audrey. That was a lot, but I did it in under 5 minutes. Wow. Usually I go like 6 minutes or something like that, but I did it under 5 minutes today. How you doing, Audrey? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm feeling good.
Good. I know it's been a while. I feel like it's time to have you back on the show, sharing all your amazing market updates and insights and all that kind of stuff. But for those who don't know you, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
For sure. So I'm Audrey Ross. I'm sitting here in Toronto, which the weather has finally changed. Our April went from like very wintry, like literally wintry with snow at the beginning of the month. And now we're coming to the end of the month and it's very like spring weather. So for the Americans in the group, that's over 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And for the Canadians, like over 15 C.
And
You
it's
can
short
tell I'm a
season.
Canadian because I'm talking about weather.
And
So
it's short season,
you're
right?
right.
65
It is short.
degrees.
Oh, especially today. Yeah. It is short season. Well, I mean, for a Canadian, I think anything over like 40 Fahrenheit, it's probably short season.
Right.
Roll up here. So yeah, living it up in Toronto. I'm repping for Toronto, which is the Organization of Women in International Trade. So we just had a great board meeting yesterday talking about all of the challenges that women entrepreneurs and people in trade policy are facing in these interesting global times. So yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Well, if you're listening, if you're watching, I want to hear from you. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, if you've got any comments, I want to put you up on the screen. I want to give you a shout out. And if you're loving the conversation, use a fire emoji. I'd love to know if you're, paying attention and enjoying the conversation. All right, let's get to the poll of the week. So we ask everybody a question every single Wednesday morning across the Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn page. And this question, sometimes, we like to do supply chain questions, but sometimes we like to do some fun questions too and get to know the community. And this is one of those. So what's your ultimate lifestyle upgrade? So we had over 200 votes for this one. 71% of you said permanent vacation mode. 23% of you said free personal trainer. I think I might have been that one. 5% said unlimited pizza, and 1% said Netflix for life. Now, if you're watching, if you're listening, put in the comments. I want to know what your ultimate lifestyle upgrade is. Audrey, which one did you pick?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about permanent vacation mode, but I mean, I have pretty good vacation package. So it's like, well, I feel like I'd get bored. I've thought, you think about it. You're like, what if I got bored? If I won the lottery and I didn't have to work, like I probably still would. There'd be projects. So I went with free personal trainer because, especially with this nicer weather, I'm like, I want to kind of get moving and have that expertise too. Cause you want to know, like, you're doing the proper form and that you're,
Yep. And you don't want it to be boring.
Well,
I find like if I take myself to the gym, I do kind of the same things over and over, and then I'm like, this isn't
why I like the
working or helping.
classes. Yeah, that's why I like the classes because someone's like, especially the one gym I used to go to, like they'd have this body combat, and someone's at the front and they're just yelling at you, and you're like hit like 10 times. You're like, okay, and then like kick someone. You're like, okay. So like it was more. I'm an Aries, so it's more energetic, but I like the kind of like high vibe. Tell me what to do and like I can get that done.
Yeah, kickboxing one day,
Oh my God,
PRX another day, all that kind of thing. I want to give a shout out to Heather and Lauren. Lauren says early retirement with financial freedom. That's kind of like permanent vacation, isn't it? Heather says and it's easy, just someone to cook dinner each night. That should have been one of the options for sure. Because I would have taken that one.
Famously did an interview and they asked her a question, and this was kind of in her like peak career, Aretha Franklin, and they're like, what's your biggest challenge as an artist? She's like, figuring out dinner every night. So it's an everyone problem.
That is an everyone that is a definite me problem. I just had the conversation this morning. And I was like, if the chicken doesn't defrost and I can't put it in the slow cooker,
then what happens?
We'll have to eat it tomorrow. Oh no, wait, we're going out for dinner tomorrow. Oh no, what do we do? Anyways, that's enough about food because we're all gonna get me hungry. Anyways, let's get to a market update. What is happening in your world? Oh
goodness.
That is a bit of a loaded question right now. So what is not happening? No, tell us what's happening. Yeah. What do we need to know? What do we need to keep an eye on?
Yeah. I mean, so let's talk key logistics challenges. The key logistics challenge right now is we still are facing the issues in the Red Sea crisis. And if you follow Sal Mercogliano and, we know that there was an issue with one of the U.S. Military vessels that's in the area. Apparently they dropped, everybody loses cargo at some point. They dropped a very expensive airplane, jet fighter off of the ship. So there's a bit of a discussion around that. So again, just reflecting that things aren't great in the Red Sea and we're all still kind of taking the longer route into Europe, which has been challenging. We'll see how rail looks coming into the summer and the peak season, because of course that's an attractive option. If you're going from Asia into Europe specifically. Panama Canal seems good. Things are flowing through. We are seeing with the increased tariffs a shift in the vessel patterns. Now we are heading into, China has a large week-long holiday, May 1st to May 5th, their National Labor Week holiday. So we usually have blank sailings in that week. That's very common year over year, just as Chinese New Year is very common, or Lunar New Year disruptions are common. We have been seeing in April, week of April 21st, there was already scheduled a ton of blank sailings. We're seeing low cargo volumes at the port. A lot of people are taking pauses on moving goods in April after the tariffs were announced on April 2nd. If you could grab your goods back before they loaded, if they were going to miss that April 9th cutoff. I've heard from several people that they, had, for whatever reason, a slight vessel delay, goods left on the 10th. Huge bill difference on tariffs coming into the US between the 9th and the 10th. So it really sucks for some of those businesses. Is having a huge effect. We are seeing, I think it was yesterday, the ILWA is reporting that they're worried about the lack of volumes and scheduled dockings into their ports. So you can see that, not only like importers into the US and businesses into the US concerned about their products and empty shelves, we're now starting to see ports. I know over with some other like Freight Waves is reporting there's some issues in trucking. Like they're finding drivers aren't picking up loads. They're having a lot of conversations about that. So it's an interesting picture right now. Canada's been slow. If you're shipping into Canada, it's been slow on imports. Europe was having a bit of congestion earlier this month. I think mostly due to some labor and work conflicts at the ports. That seems to have eased up, and we're moving in quite nicely. Asia, not too, pretty routine getting into Indonesia, Korea, and some of the other main points there. Singapore did seem to have some delays. We had some transshipments that sat there for weeks, and I'm not sure if that's just part of the new kind of, we had an alliance change earlier this year and just the new hub and spoke model changes, or if there was some congestion or delay issues there. But
question for you, for anybody who doesn't know, what is a blank sailing? Because Eric posted posted the other day and was like, mainstream media is trying to tell everybody what a blank sailing is, and they're getting it wrong.
No, apparently they had an expert on, like, I don't know, CNN or Bloomberg or somebody. So blank sailing is just when vessel carriers basically have a schedule. And I am not an expert on this, by the way. This is like large territory. But effectively, what I've learned as an importer is that vessel carriers have a schedule, and when they do a blank sailing, it means that what would be a scheduled sailing. So pick up on Tuesday every week from Yantian. They blank the meaning they just skip picking up. They
skip the port.
So like in April, there would have been 4 Tuesdays. They would have picked up every Tuesday, except the week of April 21st, when they release the schedule, they don't take it off like, oh, we're never going to pick up on a Tuesday again, or they're going to change it to a Thursday. They just don't have a vessel scheduled for that, and they consider it a blank sailing. And typically, sometimes it's used as a tool, right? It's a tool to control volume, maximize and optimize the space on the vessels. So right now it's sort of seeming like that because there's a lack of volume to fill the vessels. Right. And then there's situations, like I said, about the labor holiday where that no one's going to be working. There's no cargo available because there's no one there to load it because it's a big national holiday. So you'll have the same thing in Indonesia or other places as well, where it's like, we're not going to schedule something for the week that no one's there.
Right.
So there's an efficiency, and then there's also optimization.
Well, and we see the headlines, right? And we see blank sailings, and we see like all these different things, and volumes are down, but there's so much more to it. There's so many more layers. There's so many things that are going into a lot of the decisions, and we're going to talk about that with the articles today. So let's talk about our first article. So I wanted to bring this article to the forefront. Apple is flying buying iPhones from India because of the tariffs. Now, I don't know if any of you remember, but a couple of years ago, I think it was Audrey and I were on Thoughts and Coffee, and we were talking about how Apple had moved some of their manufacturing to India because it was a new revenue stream for them. It was a new customer base for them. And this has totally paid off because they already were in India. They already had manufacturing facilities in India as of a couple of years ago because they really took a look at their supply chain and they looked at some revenue opportunities, and that's where they landed. And now it's paying off dividends because they're able to shift some of their manufacturing into India and avoid some of the big tariffs. Now, if we think about the tariffs and the difference in tariffs, China is at 145%. If they're
Minimum.
shipping from India right now, it's a pause of 90 days. And even if it wasn't a pause of 90 days, it would be about 26%. So right now, I believe they're paying about 10%, which is a very big difference from 145%. What did you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I love that, we covered this manufacturing move previously. I think it was interesting because if you're familiar with Apple and their manufacturing partner Foxconn, they're a very well-established manufacturer, so they have a kind of a true partnership with Apple. So I imagine it looks like Foxconn kind of made some of the investment or kind of took the lead on setting up that manufacturing a few years ago. So it's nice for obviously Apple is, at the kind of the top of the game. They obviously have a lot of money to invest. If you're a smaller company, it's kind of key to find a partner like that who really has experience in manufacturing and who can take the knowledge that they're using in one place and try to take it to another place while being able to hire local agents and local representation to really maximize the localization variables. But I think this is key in making sure you have that agility in your manufacturing with having multiple spaces, because then Apple can play the game of when the tariffs increase over here, we can just kind of reshift projects to this location. And if they change over here, we can reshift again. So it just creates that agility that, especially a company like Apple with a high demand product and a high value product, can really utilize.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a really good opportunity to shift the mindset to where is the opportunity? Where is a different revenue stream for me? Is it about redesigning the supply chain that could take a couple of years? Or what can I do today to set us up for success in a year or two from now? The article that I talked about last week, I think it was with Akshay. Was it Akshay? I can't remember. We were talking about how they're shifting, the small businesses are shifting the mindset into a service-based business rather than a product-based business at this moment because of the tariff. So where is that opportunity? And this is a great article that showcases that. If they're talking about how they are going to move 50% of their demand for 2025 to India, to manufacturing in India. They have also looked at manufacturing in the US. However, the iPhone currently, as it stands, I believe is about $1,200. And if they manufactured the iPhone in the US, it would be $3,500. And they're not sure anybody would pay that price.
And they've still got to try to get inputs from places that will have tariffs affected on them, because there is I think a critical minerals aspect to phones as well, with the lithium battery piece, that the US simply doesn't have access to those minerals. Like they aren't found in the US, so they have to be imported. So at some point there's tariff diffusion anyways. I think another point too, Sarah, on this is that like it meets the challenge of in this very impactful situation driven by the US. It meets a challenge, but also Apple was thinking too, India is a huge market. India has a huge population. It's a growing population. They are tech forward for sure. So it really kind of balanced out the need for, I'm trying to address like a kind of imposed situation or a friction situation in another region. But the benefit is that, and to a lot of small businesses is you have a core market that you're servicing as well. And so they're also bringing the product closer to the Indian market, making it more attractive, making those connections with, the local agents or the local producers to understand what, maybe what features are more interesting for, for an Indian consumer, and sort of being able to tailor it that way as well. And that's a big consideration. One, like you're clocking the demand for your other market where you're having a challenge, but two, you've now introduced yourself and set yourself up locally in a massive, massive market.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Now, before we go to our next article, I want to give a shout out to Christian. He actually gave a definition of blank sailings on our Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn page. Go and check that out. It's too big to put on the screen. I think it would actually block us both out.
I'm telling you, I am not the expert on this.
I love it. Thank you so much for doing that. All right. Our next article. Now, this happened last week. So this was published April 18th, and it says DHL suspends US bound business to consumer shipments over $800. And I kind of looked at this and I was like, why would they do that? They're going to cut a lot of their revenue because they're not going to be shipping over $800. Well, breaking news is that overnight, as of yesterday, they've reversed course and resumed shipping package over $800 to US consumers. So if this was something that you were following, they literally only suspended it for a week. But what happened was they went to the table with the US government to talk about why this has had an effect on their business and why they decided to halt it. Now, it has to be something major for them to halt it because that's a ton of revenue for DHL. And so reading these articles talks about how even a 10% increase to tariffs has increased inspection costs to DHL, right? Because there's a pass-through cost of these duties that the freight forwarder, DHL as a packaged delivery company has to absorb. Somebody has to pay that. And if they're holding on to a package, the customer potentially has to pay that, or the people who shipped it has to pay that, or they're absorbing that. 10% is a lot across the board, especially if you're shipping like millions and millions of packages. So it caused all of that plus extra work and delays to the customer, which they were not willing to do. So not only do the tariffs cost, US consumers and US businesses more money, it also shifts the thinking behind some of our biggest global shipping companies on how they're going to manage these pass-through costs. So Audrey, what did you think of this one?
I think it's a huge challenge, this de minimis change, and the threshold changes, because you were talking about, the US is a huge consumer for these small volume packages. Probably, and partially it's encouraged because you didn't have to do formal customs clearances on all of these packages. So it's a lot easier. In Canada, you can't do that. Our threshold is like $20 Canadian, right? Which is like at this point like $10 American. So you just couldn't. So there's always been like a navigation to that in other countries that don't have this threshold. But it's because I think somebody clocked it like, 4 million packages a day or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a huge amount of work to do for customs, like US customs itself. But also DHL probably has 600 customs brokers in-house. Yeah. And then now you would need to have 1,200 like tomorrow. And being a customs broker is not like you can upskill, but it takes a hot minute.
Yeah. And it's all data
and designation. It's and some of it now with there's automation, but you still have to be able to understand the HS codes. You have to be offering your customer, who is often maybe a small business or a non-resident importer, advice on why this HS code, why do I need this value? So now you're having all of these interactions that you didn't have to have before. It's just a more involved process. And DHL is a courier company. People expect their packages in max 3 days.
Right.
If you're like, oh, sorry, it's sitting in customs, it's sitting in cut. Now it's a week. Usually, some of it is shopping. So it's okay, maybe the customer can wait for business to consumer. But if you're business to business and you're looking for a sample approval, you're trying to present in a meeting and you needed these samples that, it's a huge impact. And when you're already in a huge tight competition with some of the biggest names in courier, an extra day, an extra 2 days is just a massive impact for these people.
Yeah. So. Well, and Christian makes a good point again. Christian, you're all over this. I love it. Today. Insurance rises for packages over $800 as well. Yeah. So the costs across the board, and this is what I'm talking about, right? Tariffs and the news, the stories that are in the news right now are really only the first layer to everything and every person and all the things that it affects underneath it. And a lot of things we don't think about as consumers, sometimes even as supply chain professionals. If we're on one side of the supply chain, we don't actually think about sometimes what happens upstream or downstream from us. And so these are all the effects that are coming into play from the tariffs. Now, I want to get to our last article, and I know we're talking all about the T word today, but with all of these changes and everybody looking at tariffs and wondering, what does it mean for me? We really wanted to get down to the bottom of it. And we are talking a lot about business to consumer today. So this last article is about Shein and Temu and how they've just started raising the prices ahead of the new tariff, because there's going to be new tariffs that are going to come into play May 2nd. For anything under $800. And a lot of these packages have been coming through in the informal way without, a lot of tariffs and duties and all that kind of stuff. And now they're going to be coming through with all of that. And so what does that mean for everybody? Well, it means a lot to a lot of different people in a variety of ways. And this is going to impact people in a variety of ways. I can show you as of right now, I found this on Instagram, and somebody put $83 in their cart, and it's now showing $69 in shipping and import charges. So as you can see, that $83 shipment has now almost doubled because of the tariffs, the import charges, the shipping charges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you think about this? Because Shein and Temu and the packages, from what I'm reading in this particular article, 48% of those go to lower income neighborhoods as well, which I don't think majority of us quite realize.
Yeah, I think it's a huge effect. Temu and Shein really took advantage of this rule, and I think a lot of people and Americans might say unfairly, right? They've taken it as a loophole, right? And they've gained a specific advantage over other companies and over other businesses that is really kind of at the heart of what these tariff challenges are about, which is lower income Americans struggling to get jobs and struggling to pay the bills. And I think a lot of countries are, facing some of the same challenges, right? And you can kind of specifically look at, especially these two companies and say, like, they're contributing to these problems, right? So it's a huge impact. I think, there might have been different tools to address it. I think some experts in the field are suggesting that there's a different, a similar mechanism, but a different mechanism to be more targeted or specific to these companies, to
or
kind
even
of force
to the de
them to
minimis.
shift.
Like, because the de minimis, right, doesn't have to be $800. I mean, the de minimis in Canada is $40, and it's
20.
for a reason. Is it 20? I thought it was 40.
It's 20 Canadian.
Did it go down?
40 if it's USMCA. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I know. Brutal. It's brutal. Yeah.
But it's a big difference.
Yeah. Europe is the same. European Union is €20, right? So other countries, you can manage your de minimis differently. I think it was changed and shifted a little bit for the pandemic, right? Because the access to products was a little different during the pandemic. So it addressed a need at the time, but again, can be shifted back. But yeah, there's all these sort of little or, smaller mechanisms that don't have to be general and across the board, or it could be graduated. Like there's, lots of talk that this is super disruptive. I think what's, my personal opinion on some of these fast fashion. So I think it sucks that the money, of course, isn't going to the workers. It's just going to tariffs, or it's just going to that situation. And it does, negatively affect, again, Americans who are accustomed to having access to, and you have to have clothes. You have to have clothes to go to work. You have to have clothes to go to activities. Like, and if that's not available in your area, either it's rural, it doesn't have, a lot of shopping access. We've seen in the news, you and I have covered it, retail closing, malls are closing, Macy's is having financial difficulties. Walgreens is, like, all of these big kind of companies are also seemingly to have challenges. So, it definitely affects the overall economy of what's happening. But
Well, and it'll be interesting to see, right? So May 2nd is Friday. They've already put some of this in place because obviously any orders this week would fall into that by the end of the week. But we are at the end of the show. I do want to let you know that we are working on a brand new segment around Let's Talk Supply Chain Breaking News. And we're going to be having some contributors come on the show for a very quick segment to talk about breaking news, and we've got some fun stuff that we're doing this week to get that out, I believe, for this week or next week. So stay tuned because we know there's a lot of breaking news and we want to be at the forefront of that for all of you. So thank you so much to everybody who joined us today. Audrey, thank you so much for joining me on the show, and I can't wait to see everybody next week.
Thanks, Sarah.